Hello, Cookies here. This is going to be a new type of video a little bit. We're going to go over how to analyze a log from the perspective of you're in a guild and you want to help improve, and maybe you're on the healing roster, or maybe you're part of, you're wanting to help out the healers in some way, or see what you can do to really analyze the logs from like the viewpoint of a healer and stuff like that. So we're going to go over a lot of debuff stuff. We're going to go over a lot of usage of externals and healing spells and stuff like that, and really dive into like where you can find where problems are happening, and then maybe make big improvements that will help you, progress on these bosses, or even just clear farm faster. So the first example we'll use today is Hungering Destroyer on Mythic difficulty. This can work just as well on Heroic and Normal and all that stuff. We're going to be using Mythic. This is my own guild that we're going to be utilizing the log from. And the first thing we're going to go over is tracking the Essence Sap debuff count. And that is like how many applications of the Mythic debuff that people are getting whenever they're helping soak circles and helping heal people. So this is what it will end up looking like when we get there. And this one's actually like the easiest to find. So you're just simply going to go to debuffs when you open up the log. You're going to go to Essence Sap, and then you have your table right here ready to go. And so the first major thing that you're going to be looking out for when looking at this is these really high peaks. Like, who is the highest peak? So for instance, in our guild, on this kill pool, we have Yalan, who's the highest peak, and it's at 25. So that means he had at one point 25 stacks of the Essence Sap debuff, which on Mythic difficulty, you're maybe wanting to go to like 10. You usually don't want to go above 10. So we can actually click just to kind of inspect further of like what happened here, like why is someone at 25 stacks? We can actually just click on the player here, and then it'll show us like a table of their resets. It'll show a table of all this, so we can see whatever happened here. He was about to reset, it looks like, and then it refreshed and kept going. So we can actually take a further look at this, and we don't actually have to zoom in here. What we can do is I'll just track the time. So it started at 2:30, and he had these stacks by 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So then we can just go into the replay here and just go to 2 minutes, probably about like 2 minutes and 45 seconds or 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and then see what happens. So we can track Yalan here, and we can see his stack count right here of the Essence Sap. So this is his 9 stacks. This is when he should be pretty much stepping out and stopping soaking. He's staying inside the circle, still staying inside the circle, 14 stacks, 15 stacks, 16. We're still in the circle. It looks like we're running away for consume here. So he's getting out of the group. He's still getting stacks. He's trying to stay out of the Essence Saps at this point now. And it looks like it's going to get swapped. And okay, actually here he has like a perfect opportunity to reset, right? Because he's outside of the group. He got through the consume without accidentally refreshing or anything like that. He should know at this point that he's at 18 stacks. And all he has to do is stay away from the blue marker where the blue player is going to go, and he won't get any more stacks, right? So what we see is he walks on top of the blue marker, and he's staying outside of this, but you have to remember that a lot of the time the Essence Sap players, or excuse me, the Miasma players are going to go stand on this marker because that's what we're set up to do. You can see each player standing like directly on the markers. I would assume that the boss is just pulled further away, so the melee player has to step this way. And actually what happens here is it looks like, from what I'm guessing, is that because the player has no one soaking, yeah, he's like below half HP. So Yalan just kind of steps in to start healing, not realizing what his debuff stacks are at, and again refreshing. And that's where we saw that kind of peak point right here where he was about to reset but then kept going. So we can use this to kind of, again, like determine where major problems are happening with these peaks. And even like these players here, like we can see, Yandy's at 19. We can see people at 15. We can see people at, this is also 19. We can see people at 18. Like these are all, big issues that we don't necessarily want to see. And another thing to track it by is you could go by the count. So you just click on count here, and that'll show like who had the most stacks, and it could show who had like not enough stacks. So we could like look at Kronk here, for instance. He never went above 4 stacks. So that means he's not helping out very often when he probably should be, because most of the time you should be looking to go upwards to about 9, 8, 10 stacks and then step out. And we can look, you know, at someone with the highest count, for instance, like Beastoid is the highest count by a decent margin. And we can see here, so this is 4 stacks on the first one, almost done on the second. This is going to about 8, that's good. 15, that's too many. 11, that's good. 9, that's good. 11, that's good. 13, that's too many. So overall, he soaked pretty well. So that's the first thing that you can check, you know, essence stat, because this is going to cause like a significant increase in the healing requirement to kill this boss. So the more well put together, and the reason, you know, we have this problem with essence saps is probably because we don't have like a designated raid leader who's calling out, hey, you need to soak, hey, you need to do this, you know, step out, step in, stuff like that. We're kind of managing it our own with a weak aura, so that's bound to a lot of player error. But there is a lot of things in here where it's just like there's clearly player error in the case that like people just aren't utilizing the weak aura enough, and you know, we need to be more aware of it, whether we're not soaking enough like we were down here with Kronk, or we're soaking way too much like we were with Yalin. So the next thing that we'll cover is wasted healing on miasma targets, and this is, you know, people targeting players with the miasma with their spells, which is obviously relatively pointless if it's not an absorb spell. If it's just a regular flat heal, it's not going to heal them because players with miasma are immune to healing. So this is what it'll look like when we pull it up. So you can see here, this is my Holy Paladin that I'm playing, and this is me casting Holy Shock on a player, and this is when he had Gluttonous Miasma. So for instance here, we can zoom in just to make sure, and we can check if, I mean obviously this wasn't, but you can see that I cast this Holy Shock before he got the debuff. So this is okay. But then we see, you know, the second one I didn't cast any, and then this third one, I casted a Holy Shock literally in the middle of him having the debuff. So this is bad. This Holy Shock should have just been thrown on literally anyone else in the entire raid. Even if they're full HP, it's more beneficial, because when I press this Holy Shock and then I refresh Holy Shock and I have Glimmer on this guy, and I press another Holy Shock right around here, he's not going to get that healing from Glimmer, but someone else would have. And I believe even when you heal these players, your beacon doesn't get any healing because you're not actually healing anyone. I could be wrong on that, but let me know in the comments, I guess. And then this last one is another close one. This is when the debuffs are about to fall off. So this is where I would say it's acceptable, but you probably should still Holy Shock someone else, but it's not the end of the world, because if I'm making a conscious effort of, okay, the debuffs are about to fall off, I'm going to put a Holy Shock on him so that when I Holy Shock again, he gets a little bit of boost of healing from the Glimmer. I think that's reasonable. And the way we get here is, now I'll walk you through like how to get to this. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to go back to the log. We're going to go to healing done. We're going to click on myself. And then we can scroll down here to, let's just take like a look at Holy Shock, you know, a targeted spell that you need to press directly on someone and like willingly choose who takes the healing. And then we can see here down at the bottom, Dare was targeted by, or Deer was targeted by Holy Shock 3 times, but it literally did 0 healing and did 100% over healing every single time. And sometimes this is just because, you know, for instance, like we had those Holy Shocks that were cast, like right here at the start of the fight, he's just full health during this. And then these two were actually him having miasma. But that's usually the best way to go off of it, is just see how much healing your Holy Shock did. So we see here it did 0, so we click on Dare, and we're going to, oh, I remember it here now. So now we have it at, you know, we know that Dare got targeted by Holy Shock 3 times and it did 0 healing, so we want to find out, were those just him being full health and we were just applying Glimmer on the pull, or was it actually us targeting him when he was, you know, when he was debuffed? So the way that we do that is we're going to go to cast here, and we're going to click on myself, we're going to click on Holy Shock, and then we'll go down and find Dare, and then click this little plus button, and that adds the Holy Shocks that we cast on him to the timeline. And then we're going to go to debuffs, and I am aware that there's probably a better way of going about this through like the queries and filters and stuff like that, but this is just how I quickly found a way to do this, so I'm just demonstrating how you can do it. And this is the whole point of like playing around with logs, is just figuring it out for yourself. And then we're going to go ahead and go to debuffs up here at the top. We're going to make sure we unclick everything else, and then we're going to go to Gluttonous Miasma, and then we're going to find Dare, and we're going to click the plus button to see his Gluttonous Miasmas. And there you go. Now you can see if we cast Holy Shock on him during those Gluttonous Miasmas. And then the last thing that we're going to check, and you can pretty much do that with any healer, any type of, single targeted ability heal, stuff like that. And then the last thing we're going to check is external usage, which will look something like this. So we can see the Blessing of Sacrifice that I cast throughout the fight and when I cast them. And what we want to really check on Hungering Destroyer is that all of our healer externals are being put on players who have miasma and are in danger. That's generally always how your external should work. Your external should always be going on someone who is either they have an expunge or they get targeted by volatile ejection and they're not full HP when they have gluttonous miasma on them, because if they do not have full HP when those abilities are targeting them, they are pretty much going to die if they don't press like a major defensive or they receive an external. So the way we get to this page right here is we're just going to go ahead and we'll go over to cast. We will close out of this stuff. We'll pick a healer. So for instance, I'll go to myself again, and then we'll go ahead and look at my Blessing of Sacrifice cast right here. This shows that both players, it usually will only select one. So you just click on these names up here to highlight them. And now it shows both. So Dayer and Ordos got targeted. We'll just click this plus button by Ordos, and then we'll go ahead and go to, once again, we'll click off of myself, we'll go to debuffs, go to gluttonous miasma, just like with the last setup, and then we'll find Ordos and click the plus button to add him to the timeline, and then there we go. We can see when the sacrifice was targeted on him. And then if we want to take this further, we can go into the replay function and actually go to where this happened. So it happened at 2 minutes into the fight exactly. And we can just see, what kind of situation Ordos was in. So here he has the gluttonous miasma right here. He's 40% HP, and this is when I believe. I'm gonna see if he was targeted by anything. Okay, he was targeted by, was it a volatile ejection? I'll have to that actually. Go to 2 minutes. And it looks like he was, yeah, he was definitely targeted by volatile ejection here. So it hits him right there. So technically the sacrifice should have been used a little bit earlier, but we see that he drops low and then we press the sacrifice, and that's what, ends up counting in the long run. Because, okay, so this is what like triggered me to cast the sacrifice on him, for instance, is the boss casting Desolate. You can see here the boss starts casting Desolate. He's half HP, so I throw the Hand of Sacrifice on him, which, essentially could be the thing that makes or breaks us wiping on that pull, is simply just using an external when I realize that he's more than likely not going to survive that hit. And even if you're not sure, even if you just are like, they might survive, they might not, just use the external. There's no reason to hold it. You literally just need to press it. So hopefully this helps you kind of take a look at the logs and understand how to find some like interesting things to analyze and to go over as a healer or as a guild. And hopefully this helps you figure out, maybe where you're struggling on this boss, maybe where your group could improve, and then your progression or your farm on this boss should become much easier. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this type of video and would like to see more just like general log reviews from like a kind of guild / healing perspective, then let me know. And yeah, thank you again so much. Have a good one.